Tonight, we get you sharp as you move around through the rest of the year. We'll tell you about a great event happening at BRCC next week, and I want to tell you about this book that you have to have. Roll it, Scott. You know, one of the things that I often talk about here in Louisiana is we don't celebrate our positive stories enough. We don't talk enough about our wins and the great history out of one of the greatest states in our country. And we'll begin tonight with a conversation with one of my dearest friends, Ken Dawson, former parish president in West Feliciana Parish, administrator and in Ascension Parish, and now he's on the campus of the Southern University.
Go Jags.
Go Jags, running the engineering department there. And Ken also has an interesting piece of history. His grandfather founded a school in St. Francisville many moons ago, and that story is a part of a book called Notable People of Color, St. Francisville, Louisiana, by Dr. Henry Hardy. We were talking before the show started.
Yeah.
Ken, first of all, good seeing you, brother.
Good to see you, my friend.
We started off by talking about the origins of this tome. Tell me a little bit about how this got started.
I mean, it's an interesting story, Clay, because Dr. Henry Hardy was a graduate of J.S. Dawson High School. And it's amazing those schools at that time, the effect it had on the students. I mean, I had older people that attended school that would sit there and cry when they tell stories about the effect the teachers had on their lives. So Dr. Henry Hardy was working with us with the J.S. Dawson Foundation, and we were preparing to renovate the school, you know, getting funding and moving that process. Well, he was searching the web one morning, and he came across a website that listed notable people in the area. So he looked at the notable people in West Feliciana Parish, St. Francisville, and there was one notable person of color.
Y'all ain't gonna believe this. You're not gonna believe this. Who was a notable person?
Derek Todd Lee.
Serial killer.
Serial killer was the only person of color listed as notable in West Feliciana Parish, St. Francisville.
How his history makes him notable, I don't know. That's a stretch of the use of the word.
Right.
But then from that moment when Dr. Hardy saw that, what did he do next?
Well, first he called me about 10 times, being totally outraged and incensed about something of that nature. And then he decided to do something about it. That was the nature of Dr. Henry Hardy. 4 math degrees, taught in academia, so he's used to getting things done.
Right.
So what he did is that he decided to write a book, and write a book about the notable people that he knew were in West Feliciana Parish, that lived in West Feliciana Parish. Now, this probably is not all encompassing, but it definitely identifies some notable people.
Well, let's start with Dr. Dawson and tell his story before we move to some of the other notables.
Well, I tell you what, my grandfather, John Sterling Dawson, and in the book it goes back to even back to the plantation where his ancestry came from. But John S. Dawson came from Mississippi on the train to Wakefield, at 19, to come in and teach young black boys and girls how to read and write. Now, that was in the 1890s. Now, if you start thinking about that time of history, and I guess the chances of getting in a little bit of trouble of doing that kind of thing, it was amazing. Being killed, exactly. But the interesting thing that he was met by 2 white gentlemen, that also were a part of doing the right thing. And I always say that that's because people that have the right heart would do the right thing. So my grandfather started teaching. So he went to the different churches and started telling people about coming to school. And there were school churches because, of course, there was not anything built at that time. So the first day, he had 25 kids. Second day, it was like 125, something of that nature. So he was able to establish that and work through beginning education in West Feliciana Parish in that method.
I mean, it's such an amazing story, and Ken and I have been friends a long time, and I remember one of the first times we had a conversation about that, and I know the pride you have every time you talk about your grandfather and what he did. I don't think in 2023 we understand the gravity of what he did, because he could have been killed for what he did, but also the impact on people that he introduced to education. Obviously, we talked about this with you being at Southern, being at Southern, education is important to you. Did you ever hear about threats or some of the pressure that he was under at the time because he chose to do this?
Yes, I had stories that I did hear about threats, that when he would walk through the town, he would hear people that was really kind of talking him down. But this was the story that they told me. He'd have his hat on, and every time they would say it, he was just kind of nod his head as if paying homage, right? Nodding his head. But he said to himself, he was saying, I have the knowledge.
And he did have the knowledge.
And he did have the knowledge.
Well,
exactly.
I want to talk with Ken more about some of the other notable people in West Feliciana Parish and kind of talk a little bit about the importance of celebrating each other. So Ken Dawson is our guest for another segment here on the show. And then we're going to get you right, suit ready. My guy, Grayson Augustus, and he actually built this one for me. We'll talk about that. And Baton Rouge Community College has a fantastic event taking place next Thursday that we'll tell you about. That's coming up here on the show. Y'all stay right there. Still having our conversation with Ken Dawson about the book Notable People of Color, St. Francisville, Louisiana.
Absolutely.
You get some good catfish in St. Francisville.
The best.
Well, let's not get carried away now. So outside of Dr. Dawson,
Yeah.
whom else would you say is a notable person that might surprise people when they read the book?
I think one of the notable people that may surprise some people is Milton Scott.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that, Milton, he was a year ahead of me in high school. We were at Southern University together, and then Milton went off to Houston for Arthur Andersen accounting firm.
Okay.
Well, what they don't know is that Milton was the first black partner of that firm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so a lot of people probably don't know it. In fact, I didn't really know it until the time you start to explain it in the book.
Right.
But I think that's a huge accomplishment. And another one, maybe give me a little bit of bragging rights, but I have someone that's notable as well, who I taught him everything he knows on the keyboard, and and that's my brother Thomas Dawson, who is the music director for the Commodores.
Yes.
Okay?
You taught him everything you know.
Everything you know. A little hard, but I finally got through it.
That's amazing. The fascinating thing about this is the absence of self-pride I see in communities of color so often, because the negatives are talking about. Dr. Pam Jones is going to be in our next segment, and we were on a call yesterday talking about that, the wins and the positives that happen in communities, and people don't do that. They always talk about the negatives.
That's right.
And you know this, it's only a small percentage of people in disinvested communities that create the havoc.
Exactly. That's right.
The majority of the people just want to live their lives just like anyone else.
Exactly.
Right?
And that's the same thing we in West Feliciana, Clay. You and I have worked a long time together in doing things that are positive for people. And then when you look at Smith, Isaac Smith, who's a major general, came from a potato farm, planting in West Feliciana, became a major general. You have judges in here, and you have Joseph Carter, who was the first man that received the right to vote in 1963 in West Feliciana. And think about all the things that they had to go through to have that happen. So you're right, it's presenting the positive, and I think that it's important that the young people in West Feliciana all over understand that there are some people that did some things pretty significant that paved the way. And I am honored, to be associated with the Dawson family, but also honored to be working with the people who attend this school, because as I told you, they tell stories about the impact that these teachers had in their lives and what they poured into them, that they cried.
Right.
It's not zero tolerance.
Right.
Is that age is that there's certain things will not be tolerated because we expect more.
That's right. That's right. Where did that change?
Wow. I think it changed when there was some things in school where kids did not have maybe sometime after desegregation. I think the kind of things that were done with young people in those African American schools were different. For instance, one gentleman told me, he said he wanted to get his class ring and he couldn't afford it. So he went to my uncle, who was principal at the time. They called him Big John, only because he was a small guy, right? So so anyway, John told him, my uncle told him, tell them to go get your ring. And he got his ring. And this man sat and cried. He said, there are many people who wouldn't have done that. So the thing is that people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care.
Right.
And I think that we have gotten away from showing even the young people how much we care. Because if I'm concerned about your story and who you are, and I take time to listen to that, then I could be able to teach. first if I could be concerned about you. And I think that has changed.
I love your passion for this project, and this is the person that I've known for so long. If someone wants to get this book, where can they get the book?
There's a website that will be the J.S. Dawson Foundation website that you can get the book. And we're a small town, probably. It will be at the library. We'll be at some places that in different establishments that we'll be selling it. And anybody can get in touch with me anytime. I'll be glad to.
And I want to do this too. I think for people who've never been to St. Francisville,
yeah,
it's a worthwhile trip to go and tour the city. There are things there about history, both Louisiana and African American, that I think you'll see from the plantations there. And
yes,
it's worth the trip. Would you agree?
I agree, and even the new mayor has a trolley in the town now that even helps move the people around and have them to come to different places. Some nice restaurants that I got to take you to that weren't there years ago.
You didn't even say that on the camera here. Whose treat is it?
Ambrose.
Ambrose Sims, my good friend Ambrose Sims.
Right.
Notable people of color, St. Francisville, Louisiana. Read about some of the history there. Dr. Dawson, Ken's grandfather, and his brother with the Commodores, who I haven't seen in a long time either.
I'll get you a ticket next time they close. Backstage, all of that, okay?
Y'all heard all of that. You know it's on film now. Hey, brother, appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you, Clay. Thanks
Let's
for having me.
talk about what's happening at BRCC next. So, Ken Dawson was here, and we talked a lot about wins that people don't often talk about, specific to African Americans in West Feliciana and across the country. But here in East Baton Rouge Parish, we've had some wins as well. But then there's also perspective to be had about the last few years. And you're going to get a chance to listen to a dialogue about perspective next week on the campus of Baton Rouge Community College. They're hosting their inaugural Community Leadership Summit. One of the featured speakers there will be General Russell Honore. So here with me to talk about this, Dr. Chandra Joseph, Dr. Pamela Jones, who has been kind of the lead, the engine behind this thing since it started. So let's start with where this all came about. Where was the idea born to have this summit?
Sure. So thank you first and foremost, Clay, for having us here with you again. Excited to be here and to showcase our Community Leadership Summit. Mm-hmm. The premise of this was actually built from a friend of mine, Dr. Joyce Plummer, former Joyce Plummer.
Great person.
Exactly.
We lost her, last year?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Dr. Plummer and I had a dialogue about how do we convene leaders throughout the community, talk about the positives that are happening, and to help break down silos. I happen to work for a phenomenal chancellor, Dr. Willie E. Smith, who is so passionate about connecting the community to the education opportunities that we offer at BRCC. And so through our dialogue and his passion for what we do through our school, the conversations grew, and then the development of what we're now putting together called the Community Leadership Summit.
I think it's great. And in addition to the panel discussion that will feature Dr. Cito Narcisse, Sheriff Sid Gautreaux, General Russell Honore, Dr. Joseph, you're on the panel as well, correct?
I am not on the panel. No, I will be a speaker.
Add you to the panel, right? No. There's also going to be a voter registration drive, right?
Is correct.
That's going to be happening before the panel.
That before and
after the panel.
That
right.
is correct.
So it's a full day of activities on BRCC's campus. So there are 4 pillars, Dr. Joseph: education, the economy, health and wellness, and social justice. And we had a great conversation yesterday with Sid Gautreaux, Sheriff Gautreaux, about this. What is your biggest hope, Dr. Joseph, in terms of the outcome of this day of activities?
So I'm hoping that through the summit, we can get people around the community to understand how our community college, BRCC, through our education with our criminal justice program, can assist with all of the, I would say, the lapses within law enforcement, which is why we have, of course, Sheriff Gautreaux on the panel with us. And we do a really phenomenal job in our criminal justice department with our students getting them out into the field once they graduate.
Yeah. You know, there was a press conference there, Dr. Jones, maybe 4 or 5 months ago in the library at BRCC, announcing a collaboration between the school and I think BRPD in terms of law enforcement. I remember being there, and then the dialogue there was about how forward-thinking the campus is. You talked about Dr. Smith. He really is phenomenal. I mean,
Yes.
focused on being the absolute best he can be. Let's get into the pillars.
Sure.
I mentioned it: education, economy, social
Justice.
social justice, and then
Health and
health and
well-being.
well-being.
Correct.
How'd you choose those 4?
So that's a great question. Instead of us making the assumptions of what's out there and what's critical and important, we took the initiative to connect with the discovery,
Yeah.
urban discovery sessions. We went to 3 councilmen to their districts,
Yeah.
to District 5, 6, and 7,
Right.
through the support of Lamont Cole, Cleve Dunn, and also Darrell Hurst. And we spoke with people in the community and got feedback from them and designed this summit specifically to dialogue on these pressing needs.
Yeah, yeah, and you know the conversation I've referenced it a couple times with the sheriff that we had yesterday. The focus that needs to be given to disinvested communities so that it enhances the community as a whole is top of mind. And you got a chance. He and I have had these conversations. You got a chance to hear how passionate he is about that.
Powerful.
If that little brief conversation is a taste of what's going to happen next week,
I'm
people are
excited.
in for a treat.
Yes.
You also are going to have a call to action at the end of the panel discussion. Talk a little bit about that.
Right. So the whole premise there is really because we're bringing leaders to this summit. We're inviting, it's open to the community, open to the public for them to join. But we want to see faith-based leaders. We want to see nonprofits. We want to see business and industry leaders in the room. And we want to see them walk away with strategic action items in these last 122 days of this year.
Right.
We're already in the last quarter.
Can you believe that?
Yes, and we want to see what will they bring to the table to help make the city of Baton Rouge the best that it can be.
The event is next Thursday on the campus of Baton Rouge Community College. There's the graphic on the screen there. You see the iconic General Russell Honore, who will be speaking at the event, but also will be a part of the panel that'll happen after that. The public is invited to attend. Get it on your calendars. Let's have this great dialogue. I appreciate y'all for coming on with me.
Thank you for having
All
us.
right, let's get you sharp next. So look, if you know me, you know I love a good suit. And not just a good suit, a suit that works for you, because a suit's a uniform. People say a suit is dressed up, a tuxedo is dressed up. A suit's just a uniform. Well, Grayson Augustus, with such a great name, is here with Pierce Bespoke, and they actually built this suit. Grayson actually did this. We met a few weeks ago and kind of talked through what I was looking for, picked out the fabric and the design and the cut, and I told them I wanted elbow patches on there, and then they put it together. It is, for me, one of the best things because this is specifically for me.
100%.
And it's an investment in myself.
100%.
Right? So let's talk a little bit about the custom experience for people who've never gone through it.
Okay. No, the custom experience, it's a very unique experience, and the best thing about it is we're going to build it out for you, right? So like you said, you and I met, you kind of gave us your thought process, like your dream board, and then I put it together, and you know, we got a great suit out of it. And so the best part about the custom experience is you're able to put together, take your ideas, and we help you guide you through the process. Like with Pierce Bespoke, we have thousands of buttons and liners for us to choose from, and we're going to put together a great look for you.
You know, it's funny. I had this conversation with someone earlier this week. There is a psychological impact positively when you feel like you look good.
Absolutely.
Michael Jordan tells the story that he wore a new pair of Air Jordans every game. And he said, people remember the feeling you have when you put on a pair of new sneakers for the first time. He said, I want that feeling every ball game.
Yeah.
That's a lot of sneakers, and probably easy for him because he gets them free.
Right.
But there is something to be said about feeling good about how you look.
Absolutely, and there's nothing like wearing a custom garment. You know that, I know that, and it's such a great opportunity to take something, and that's my favorite part about custom, because you had a great idea and we put it together. But we'll also have other people, ladies, guys, who will have somewhat of an idea of what they want to do.
Yeah.
And when you take that idea and you bring it to fruition and you show them their options and you put it on their shoulders and you see that look on their face and how they feel when they put on a custom garment, there's nothing like it, man.
And I'm a minimalist. The great thing about custom is like I don't need a bunch of buttons. I'm not walking around Baton Rouge looking like Captain Crunch. I just want a suit that I could wear to work, and that's the great thing about it. But let's talk about the fall. Rumor has it we are going to have one. I don't know. It seems like we're going to have summer until December, but
Right.
we are. What should be people's mindset as they think about fall attire?
The biggest things is the first thing you want to get. It's the last opportunity where your linen
This
and
is
your
it.
seersucker.
This is the last one until March or April of next year.
That's it. We only get a little while, a little bit of fall. Other than that, you want to start rolling out some of your heavier fabrics. This year opportunity, overcoats, things like that. Your thicker, your heavier wools. If you do custom, start ordering those things now. So because you only get a small window to wear it, right?
Right.
Start doing those things now, and you get to layer a little bit. You get to do sweater vests. You get to do your regular sweaters underneath with your bigger ties, a nice tie with a nice shirt, and go darker colors.
Yeah.
So you get to play a little bit with some different colors, different color palette.
What's a big don't?
Big don'ts are you want to stay away from, again, linen seersuckers. You want to stay away from whites.
Yeah.
I've always been on the fence with the lighter grays. Some guys think that you can't wear lighter grays in the fall and in the winter. Louisiana, I think you can. You start going more north, maybe you steer away from that. But those are the big ones.
Yeah,
You want to
yeah.
stay away from the lighter colors. You shouldn't really be wearing spring colors in fall and winter, things like that. But other than that, you're good to go.
Look, you were talking with Dr. Jones and Dean Joseph in the break before this segment, and one of the things out there that people I don't think often think about is that women can get custom from y'all as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we take care of them just the same way we take care of the guys. We take 25 points of measurement on them. It's a 3 to 4 week turnaround on getting their garments back, and they can design the suit of their dreams, and we can make it happen.
Look, I sent a buddy of mine with BRPD to you guys a couple weeks ago, and he went through the hip measurement experience, and I saw him this week. Man, he's excited. he's like Christmas Eve excited.
Absolutely,
I said, man,
absolutely.
when you slip that jacket on for the first time, your first customer said it's going to change your life, so get your money ready.
It's a game changer. It's a game
Okay,
changer.
quickly, where can people learn more about Pierce Bespoke?
You can go to piercebespoke.com. And then obviously, if you want to reach out to me specifically, you can go to Grayson Augustus at piercebespoke.com, and I'll take good care of you, and we'd love to get you suited up.
Pierce Bespoke, I swear by him. All right, Hiller Moore will be here next week to talk about this summer and the violence. We'll see you then. You guys have a great weekend and a safe Labor Day.